Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. I hope everybody enjoyed all the college football action from yesterday. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the games. Of course, I try my best to always talk a little bit about some of the not necessarily best games, but at least games people are, looking forward to and talking about going into the weekend. The first big game from yesterday, of course, was Michigan and Michigan State. And I know I said in yesterday's video that I thought Michigan State would win, but the only reason that I was picking them was because both teams were pretty much evenly matched on both sides of the ball. But Michigan State was the home team, so I would pick them just because they were the home team. And they won by 4 points. And generally, the home team gets, 3.5 points as far as, when the spreads come out. So basically, they were two evenly matched teams. But Michigan State won by the final score of 37-33. And I got to be honest, I thought I was going to be wrong because Michigan was up at halftime by 9 points. And then in the middle of the third quarter, they were up 30-14. And it looked like they were going to pull away with it. But then Michigan State drove down the field, scored, went for two, and got it, made it 30-22. And then they got the ball back, scored again, went for two, and got it, and it was 30-30. And then Michigan got a field goal, and Michigan State got the touchdown and won the game by the score of 37-33. So I thought it would be a good game, and it was because it was the big noon kickoff. And, of course, Fox always wants a great game for the big noon kickoff so they can always win the viewership award, if you want to call it that, for the title of most people watching the noon game. That's why Fox always tries to pick, two really good teams for the noon game, for the big noon kickoff. And then, of course, we had Wisconsin and Iowa also playing at noon. And this was not really much of a game. I think it's obvious now that Iowa's offensive line is just absolutely terrible. They could not do anything yesterday. Every time they tried to run the ball, Wisconsin had men in the backfield right away. And every time Spencer Petras would go back to throw, before he could even look up to look downfield, he was getting hit. Their offensive line was terrible. At one time in the second quarter, it was, I believe, 7-0 Wisconsin. And Iowa had the ball, and Petras got sacked at the 7-yard line and fumbled, and Wisconsin scored. And then they only got a field goal on that drive. And then Iowa got the ball back. And then when they got the ball back, they got the ball inside the 5-yard line. And they fumbled again. And Wisconsin scored again. And it was 17-0. And I knew right then the game was over with. And it was. The final score was 27-7. So Iowa, in a span of 2 games, 3 weeks because of the bye week last week, has gone from number 2 to, I'm going to guess, somewhere probably around 15th. Of course, the AP poll really doesn't matter anymore. The coaches poll really doesn't matter anymore because on Tuesday, the first college football playoff ranking comes out. It always comes out the first Tuesday in November. We may discuss it here on the channel this week. If we do, it'll be on Thursday because, of course, by the time it comes out on Tuesday, I will be at work. And then, of course, Wednesday will be our weekly top 10 countdown. So if we do discuss it, it will be on Thursday, but the college football playoff ranking always debuts at 7:30 on the first Tuesday in November. So it is coming out on Tuesday. And then, of course, we had Georgia and Florida. And just like I said yesterday, I just didn't think Florida was that good. Georgia won by the score of 34-7, so they won by 27. The point spread in the game was only, I believe, 14, which was shocking to me because I wouldn't have had it that close because I didn't think Florida was going to keep the game that close. But they had a couple of chances to score. They missed a 51-yard field goal, but I mean that's a long field goal, but it was long enough. It was just extremely wide, but they also missed like a 23-yard field goal, which is just pitiful. But it was like 3-0 Georgia with like 7 minutes to go in the first half, and then Florida picked off Georgia at about the 1 yard line, but by the time the defender came to a complete stop, he was in the end zone. But instead of downing the ball in the end zone, he tried to run it out. So Florida started the drive at the wrong 1 yard line, and then on that drive, they fumbled, and Georgia scored. And then when Florida got the ball back, they turned the ball over again, and Georgia scored. So it ended up at halftime being 24-0, but Georgia's offense did absolutely nothing in the first half. They scored more points either on the defense or because of the defense than their offense scored. It's amazing to me how all the Georgia fans have complained ever since Bobo left about how bad their offense has been. But if you look at the total team stats this year, their offense is no better now than it was when Chaney was there. It's no better now than it was when Coley was there. But when you're only giving up 7 points a game, so you're winning, people don't look at, how average or mediocre your offense is. But if Georgia was, 6-2 this year, they would be complaining about it. But they went into yesterday's game 42nd in the country in total offense, which 42nd in the country pretty much means any other big-time program is ahead of you. So, like I said, team-wise, stat-wise, they're no better now than they were 4 or 5 years ago. But a pedestrian offense is all you need when your defense is that good. But it might have improved a little bit. But if it did, it didn't improve much because you were 42nd, and Georgia had less than 350 yards of total offense. So they just didn't do much on offense. But, you don't need to when your defense is that good. Isn't it amazing how when you lose, people complain about your offense? But when your offense is the same, but you're winning, people don't notice it. But like I said, with a defense that good, you don't need a great offense. But I'm just talking about how it's funny how, Georgia has the same offense now they had 5 years ago as far as, total yards, total offense and everything. But they talked about how much better it was going to be under Monken, and I don't see it. It might look flashier and look better, but that doesn't change the fact that the offense, total offense-wise, is no better. It's different players, different system, different scheme, but same results. And then, of course, we had Clemson and Florida State. Clemson won the game 30-20 because they got a touchdown on defense the last play of the game. I know I said in yesterday's video that if they scored 30, I'd be happy, and they got exactly 30. But their offense did look a little bit better. Still nothing spectacular, but they did miss 3 field goals. So, had they made those field goals, they would have scored almost 40 points. So it just goes to show how when it's not your year, it's just not your year. B.T. Potter is most of the time an automatic field goal kicker. And then yesterday, when you need him, he misses 3 out of 4 field goals. But, like I said, it didn't matter. You still scored 30. Passing game looked better. Will Shipley looks like he's going to be a phenomenal running back. I think now we know why all the running backs transferred, because I think all of them had enough sense to know that when Will Shipley comes in there and starts getting the ball, he's going to keep the ball. Phil Mafah is going to be good, too. I know back when Clemson had James Davis and C.J. Spiller, Davis was the guy that would run you over, whereas C.J. was the guy that just nobody could catch. So their nicknames were Thunder and Lightning. It's pretty much that way now with Shipley and Mafah, because Mafah will run you over in a minute. And Shipley's just fast, so they pretty much have the modern-day version of Thunder and Lightning. But, of course, they've had so many guys transfer now that outside of those 2 guys and Kobe Pace, who missed yesterday's game, they really don't have any other running backs right now. But those 2 guys are so good, as long as they're healthy, they're going to be the top 2 running backs on the depth chart for at least the next 3 years. And then Oklahoma absolutely destroyed Texas Tech, 52-21. So Oklahoma's offense, coming off that ugly performance against Kansas last week, looked a lot better. And of course, Texas Tech, for some stupid reason, fired their coach after last week's game, and they looked about the same without him as they did with him. And then Auburn beat Ole Miss by the score of 31-20. I know I mentioned yesterday that a lot of people are saying that the reason why Ole Miss's offense is struggling this year compared to not just the Ole Miss offense from last year, but compared to what Lane Kiffin does at most of his stops with an offense, that it's because of the fact that there's so many rumors going around about Lane Kiffin leaving that it's a distraction, and 20 points in a game for an Ole Miss offense is just terrible. They usually score 20 points in a quarter. And Bo Nix continues to get better under the tutelage of Mike Bobo. It's amazing. This is the same quarterback that earlier this season got benched against Georgia State. Now, I know overall, if you look at his numbers from last night's game, I think he was 22 of 30 for 276 yards. So the completion percentage was over 70, and he had 276 yards passing, which this day and time, with so many quarterbacks putting up such great numbers, that's not great. But he didn't have any interceptions, and he didn't have a lot of those stupid throws that Bo Nix normally has at least 4, 5, 6 times a game where you think, where in the world was he throwing that football? So Bo Nix continues to get better. If he comes back next year as a senior, which he probably will because I don't think he's going to be an NFL quarterback, I'm just anxious to see how much better he's going to be next year as opposed to where he is this year. But he's already came leaps and bounds under Brian Harsin and Mike Bobo, as he did when Gus Malzahn was their head coach. And then Wake Forest won again. They destroyed Duke by the score of 45-7. So Wake Forest heads into November with the record of 8-0. I know I mentioned yesterday that they were off to a 7-0 start for the second time in school history. The other time was all the way back in 1944. And then Ohio State beat Penn State by the score of 33-24. The game was actually a lot closer than I thought it would be. Penn State actually had a lead at one point in the game. Then they tied the game up at 17, but Ohio State still won and won by 9 points. But I will give Penn State credit because they played a lot better than I thought they would. And then NC State beat Louisville by the score of 28-13. So just like I said in the video yesterday, when NC State plays Wake Forest coming up, I believe in 2 weeks, the winner of that game, unless we just have absolute craziness in the final month of the season, the winner of that game will win their side of the ACC. And of course, speaking of that side of the ACC, we'll talk about the other side of the ACC. It looked like Pittsburgh was by far the best team from that side of the ACC, which is called the Coastal. But then they got upset yesterday by Miami. So now I'm not quite sure who's the best team out of that side of the ACC. We also had Notre Dame beating North Carolina by the score of 44-34. I know North Carolina at 4-4 now, they're nowhere close to having the season they thought they were going to have, but if they could have pulled that upset off, it would have made them feel a little bit better. And their offense was good enough, but their defense just continues to be terrible. I know it was awful last year, and they had all this talk in the offseason about how much better their offense was going to be and how much better their defense was going to be. And their offense isn't better, but it's not worse. It's about the same as it was, but their defense has just made no improvement whatsoever. And then, of course, we had Mississippi State beating Kentucky by the score of 31-17. I just wanted to see Kentucky win because, as of right now, they're second place in the SEC East. And even though they lost last night, they're still in second place in the SEC East. But I do think that loss more than likely took them out of a New Year's Day bowl game, and it would be great for that program and that university if they could play in a New Year's bowl game. There's still a chance, but that was their second loss, and I think they'll lose at least one more time this season. And I just don't think 9-3 is going to be good enough to play in a New Year's Day bowl game. But 9-3 is probably still good enough to finish in second place in the SEC East, which is good for Kentucky. If you have any thoughts on any of these games, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. Sad news. My obese parrot died today. But the good news is it's a huge weight off my shoulders. And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.